everybody, welcome back to my studio. Today I've got a little bit of a art hack for you. Now, if you're into journaling, which you know, that's what I've been doing, it's been fun. And if you've bought any kind of scrapbook paper that's like one-sided, not the two-sided, but the one-sided kind of scrapbook paper, let me show you a piece that I'm talking about. It's got a pretty pattern on one side, white on the other. And most journalists don't want to use the white side, which is understandable. You want something pretty, right? Okay. Well, I'm here to show you a little something that I came up with. I need it. Here is a piece of scrapbook paper that was just plain. I mean, you can kind of see the pattern that was under it. It was just like a lacy pattern. This gives you a really good example of what it looked like all the way down. And to me, it was kind of boring. And there was, you know, nothing on the back, so I was just like, well, that's kind of boring too. But what I'm here to show you is the pattern I put on top to kind of spruce it up. I also did, if you wanted to, I mean, if you wanted to spruce up a pattern, you can do this way and leave the back white, or you can paint the back if it's a piece that you know you'll never use. Just paint the back. So this is another pattern that I painted onto the back side of a piece I know I'll never use. And I'm going to be using this in a new journal that I'm in the process of putting together. So once you've come up with, you know, you've painted this, we're going to paint a piece. So I'm going to show you how this is done. You can like cut it up into bite-sized pieces, basically. Let's get this all in frame. So once you've cut out your pieces that you know, a piece that you like, let me show you. I made this journaling card, and in the background you can see I used a piece of this that I had painted and then layered it up, put lace on it and all that kind of, I mean, this is seriously thick, almost like a cardboard that I put it on. I was just playing around, but this is what I came up with. But you can see how the background is a little bit more interesting instead of it being just this bland. And I just inked it up. I just went over it with some ink to kind of grunge it up a little bit. So that's why it's not that bright white like you can see. But that's not why we're here. We're here just to look at our papers and see, you know, could there be more to it? That's basically what I was trying to come up with. So yeah, I mean, you could come up with some really pretty papers that you'd rather use instead of, you know, stuff like this. So that's what we're gonna do. So what I did is I grabbed some, let's see if I can make some more room here. I grabbed a piece of just freezer paper, so it's kind of slick on one side. And I was doing some hand painting napkins to use in decoupage, which I also have some of that. If I can find it. Oh, I'm so disorganized though. Let's see. Where is my napkins? I have them here. There they are. So I just took regular old napkins, and these are just one-ply picnic napkins. And you can see I've been using this one, and used watercolors and a brush, and just painted pretty patterns onto the napkins, like this, and then let them dry. But what I found is that the waxy paper wasn't letting these dry very fast. So I decided to move them to watercolor paper so that the watercolor paper would absorb the moisture. But what was cool is that the watercolor paper on top of that also absorbed some of the color out of the napkin that I was using. So what happened then was that I ended up with watercolor paper that had, you see all the little splotchy marks in the background? That was from the napkins just drying onto the paper. So now I've got watercolor paper that also I went ahead and painted roses and leaves and whatnots on, you know, butterfly and all that kind of stuff. But now I can use this in my making journals, you know, for cards or tags or whatever. And then I've also got the hand painted napkins on top of that. So this is kind of like a several steps, but the stuff you end up coming up with is really cool. So, having said that, and showed you that, I'm going to show you how to watercolor on some paper. I mean, I like this paper, but it's kind of, I don't know. I have two, every pack comes with like 2 sheets, and I thought this was kind of, it's okay, but it could be better. So, I went ahead and drug out my cheapy watercolor set, and trust me, they're cheap. And just any old brush will do. Seriously, any brush will do. So let me get my bag here. So let's wet these down. Now, depending on what you're looking for when it comes to a pattern, that could be pretty much anything. It doesn't have to be perfect, because literally when it dries really light. That's what watercolors do. Now see, I've picked out, see these little purple, I don't know if you can see them on this camera. It's kind of a pinky line going through this pattern here. So I've got this kind of a purpley mix. Oops. Don't need you there yet. Kind of a purpley, and it matches that pink. And what I'm going to do is, I think these, I'm going to use roses, of course. And just put in some roses here and there. And it doesn't matter. I mean, these are super easy roses to do. I'm just going to put them all over the paper, just random places. And I'll, you know, if I run out of paint, I'll just mix up another batch. Not a big deal. But you can see how already this is making this paper look more interesting. Every pass of the leaf gets a little bigger. You can throw a couple little more there, here and there. We'll just mix up a little bit more paint here, so we don't want to run out. A little bit more blue. There we go. And you don't need a lot on your brush. I'm actually using an oversized brush here. And I probably will go in, once I've got all the roses in, and paint some leaves. And they don't have to be perfect. Trust me. As long as they look like a rose or a flower, or, I mean, you don't even have to do roses. You can do all types of flowers, or heck, you could even do birds if you wanted to, or butterflies, or you know, whatever suits you. Or your project, actually. Whatever's good for your project. Scooch up a little bit. Something like that. Okay, so let's work on some leaves. And need some green. And we don't want this to be super green, so we're going to mute it down a little bit. To do that, you always add a little bit of red. So, I'm just going to go this way. These are pretty much the same kind of leaves I used for that other piece I showed you, that other piece of paper. And these are Japanese brushes I'm using. So they hold a lot of water and a lot of paint. And you can see how this is just kind of, you're just making patterns. Just kind of fill in wherever you think needs it. Kind of like that. There we go. Now that to me looks a lot more interesting than what the paper looked like before. It gives it a little more dimension. And all we have to do is let it air dry. And then we've got an entirely different type of paper that we can use in our journals. So this piece here will work really well in any kind of journal that has a lot of greens and mauves. This would be a lot better for me anyway, for me personally. So depending on what you're doing, what your project is, yeah, you can, I mean, the sky's the limit, literally. If you've got a piece of paper, you know, any kind of scrap, even scrap paper. Oh yeah, the scrap paper that you have that you're going, oh, I just don't know what the heck I would do with that. Flip that bad boy over and paint yourself something on the back side that actually suits you better. Anything like that will work. Any of the colors you can mix will work. It's, like I said, the sky's the limit. So I hope that helped y'all. And I will be back next time with another little art hack when it comes to our scrapbook paper. So I also have another art hack coming when it comes to making, come here, come over there, wax seals. Yeah, if you've got a wax seal press like this, but you don't have any wax, or you're really not one for wanting to have fire, because you have to melt the wax over the fire. If you don't have the wax sticks for your hot glue gun, you can still do this, even with the hot wax. You just put it down on a piece of glass, press this down onto it, wait for it to cool a little bit, pull it off, and this will peel right off a glass, and then you can paint it whatever color you want with acrylic paint. And I will come with a video to show you how you can do this and add these to your journals. So until next time, I sure do love you bunches. See you later. Bye.